The expansion of instant replay to include pass interference ended up being the biggest news to come out of the NFL's annual meeting that concluded Wednesday in Phoenix. The change came about in large part because of the much-talked-about no call in the Saints' controversial NFC Championship game loss to the Los Angeles Rams. The rule, which owners passed by a vote of 31-1, will allow coaches to challenge pass interference calls and no calls up until the final 2 minutes of the half. Under 2 minutes, those calls can be looked at by the NFL in the replay booth. Here are the answers to some of your questions about the rule change. Should fans like the rule change? If you don't want to see another blatant missed call like the one you saw in January, of course. But there will be calls much closer than that one that will be challenged and overturned. Some of these will work in your team's favor at the most opportune time. Others will work against you at the most inopportune time. How did a rule change that looked like it had no chance when the week began all of a sudden pass at the end of the meeting? A lot of the credit for that should go to Saints coach Sean Payton and the other 7 members of the competition committee. They kept working on coming up with alternatives, finally coming up with something that everyone, well, almost everyone, could agree on. Dallas Cowboys coach Jason Garrett and New England Patriots coach Bill Belichick are among the coaches who were quite outspoken about the need for change as well. Once the committee came up with a proposal that resembled the replay system already in place, it was much easier to sell. A lot of discussion, Competition Committee Chairman Rich McKay said. There was definitely a block of people, members of the committee and membership, concerned about the ability to put a challenge flag on for a no call. I think where we got more comfortable was where we worked through it and said, listen, it's capturing the current replay system. There were concerns about some of the officials in the NFC Championship game being residents of California, home of the Rams. Was there any conversation about changing the rules so that doesn't happen again? No, in fact, Payton said there was no discussion on it at all. Payton did, however, say that he believes the days of the all-star officiating crews in the playoffs should come to an end. He'd prefer seeing crews that have worked together during the regular season stay together for the playoffs. That all-star crews was one of those things that sounded good for a while, Payton said. The group you worked and trained with all year I feel like should be the group that stays together. If your group is graded well enough, you work this playoff game. The idea of taking all these officials who haven't worked together and putting them in a game sounded nice. But I think that, having an all-star crew, had more to do with the missed call in our game than anything else. We watched in that specific play, we watched a young official defer to another official, and it's the first time they're working together. That's human nature. Will additional replay slow the game down even more? It shouldn't. Coaches don't get any more challenges than they already have. Officiating NFL games is a part-time job. Should it become a full-time job? The league makes enough money that it could pay officials whatever it takes for them to not have to work another job. It would help give officials more time to train and work on their craft during the off-season. Payton agrees. I don't think most of fans realize that most of our current officials are all working other jobs. Payton said. They have careers. They have other jobs that they go back home to. Because look, we're not playing 82 games like the NBA. And back then, it made sense. The rate of the way our game is going and the amount of field they're covering now, I think there's a lot of things that will have to take place in the next 5 years. I do. Some games, particularly the games on Sunday, Monday and Thursday nights, have more cameras than a typical Sunday noon game. How does that affect competitive balance? We are comfortable with the fact that both teams, in a particular game, are playing with the same set of cameras. McKay said. So they are what they are. Once the game is stopped, whether it's a challenge, or in the last 2 minutes the replay official has stopped the game, he gets a pretty good look even when there are only 8 cameras. Challenging times is when there are a limited number of cameras and you have to make a decision to stop. You just don't have a lot of looks. That's challenging. We have always been comfortable at the end of the day that our replay system is going to be driven through television. We're going to use their cameras, bring them in and use their looks and make our decisions. We knew way back when that would mean some games would have more cameras than others. Who was the one owner who didn't vote for the change? That would be Cincinnati Bengals owner Mike Brown. According to an ESPN report, Brown met with members of the Cincinnati media to explain why he was the lone dissenting voter. The reason that we are against it is that it interrupts the game. Brown said, "It changes the character of the game, in my mind. I think it's, in some ways, sort of odd to see people all sitting there waiting for somebody in New York to tell them it is or it isn't. I'd rather just play the game. Is expanding it good or bad? That depends on who you ask. Most fans will love replay when it works in their favor and hate it when it works against them. Simple as that. I don't think we should be scared of how replay can expand." McKay said, "We are very mindful of unintended consequences. Our feeling was the old idea of let's walk, jog, run. Let's start with the biggest boulders, which were offensive pass interference and defensive pass interference. We had the statistics and analytics to show it. Do I think people are going to suggest expansion in the future? I would be naive to say anything other than yes. Will the rule change lead to even more replay in the future? A lot of that likely will depend on how things go during this trial run this season. If it goes smoothly, owners would probably be willing to expand it even more in the future. If it doesn't go as planned and creates even more controversy, owners likely would axe it. How important was it for the league to get a rule in place to avoid what happened in the NFC Championship game? It was imperative. It's why they came up with 4 proposals, finally settling on one that was good enough that at least 24 owners would vote for it. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, hoping to avoid the mess he had after the NFC title game, agreed it was important. "We've always said officiating is never going to be perfect," Goodell said. "You can use the technology to try to improve officiating. We do that every year and it evolves, whether it's our techniques and how we train or how we work with our officials on the field. Replay has been an important tool for us. At the end of the day, our clubs, our coaches and owners and everyone else realized that our job was to get these right. And we should use every available means to get these right. And replay is a great means to do that. Will this solve every problem? Will this get us to perfect? You know the old saying, don't let perfect get in the way of better, and this is a very natural evolution and a very positive thing." Follow Rod Walker on Twitter, @RodWalkerAdvocate.